Hey y'all, and welcome back to another Prime Video episode where we're going to be talking about all the stuff that they're adding in August 2024.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now, it's a long list, and I'm going to show you every single title getting added in August on Prime Video and on FreeVee, but I'll actually only focus on my top 10 picks out of all the older movies they're adding on August 1st, and then I'll tell you about some of the new projects coming throughout the month of August.
Nothing that a killer, a porn star, and a tattoo parlor can't handle.
In fact, on August 1st, they dropped kind of a big one. It's titled Batman Caped Crusader. Now, that may not seem like a big deal to a lot of you, but if you didn't know, the original Batman, the animated series from the 90s, was not only a hit show, it was actually incredibly well written for an animated series, so much so that some of those episodes still hold up today as some of the best Batman content ever created. Also, this was originally going to be for Max. Warner Brothers produced it, but James Gunn came in, cleaned house. He's now in charge of everything DC that Warner Brothers is going to be putting out. Because of that, this moved over to Prime and is already committed to a second season. And I mean, J.J. Abrams is behind this. The original writer of the animated series is involved. So, it's actually a pretty promising Batman animated show, if you can believe that. But here's the full list of every single title that they're adding throughout the month. You'll notice there's some great stuff here like Pulp Fiction, Scarface, and Road to Perdition are just right here in this one spot. But instead of talking about movies that I know most of you have seen a bunch of times, I do want to focus on some lesser known movies. In fact, my top 10 recommendations are all movies that deserve a bit more love. My number 10 pick out of everything they've added here on August 1st is Southland Tales. Now, this is actually from the same creator as Donnie Darko. It's not nearly as good or as culturally relevant as Donnie Darko, but still a wildly interesting watch. Now, do not watch Southland Tales if you don't like weird movies and movies that just go to incredibly bizarre places. Southland Tales definitely does that, and it's gonna ask way more questions than it answers, but at the same time, you get kind of a bizarre role from The Rock. You've also got Sean William Scott with the pretty meaty role, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and you've got Justin Timberlake playing a bad guy singing a song by The Killers. It's kind of wild and interesting. It's not glued together very well at all, but if you like wild, interesting movies, Southland Tales is beyond that. Next up, I've got a couple of funny picks, starting with How to Be a Latin Lover. This follows kind of a basic rom-com format, except you're actually following, he's not a gigolo. He's a trophy husband, but he's an aging one. And when the wealthy woman that he has shacked up with leaves him for a younger man, played by Michael Cera, of all people, he's kind of out on his ass and has to move back in with his sister, played by Salma Hayek. Again, you end up going into typical romantic comedy areas with How to Be a Latin Lover, but along the way, you just get some wildly funny scenes like this one. So if you're in the mood for some laughs, it's a good one, even if it's a little bit too by the book, but my next pick just took the book and chucked it as far as they could with Troll 2. Now, it's worth noting that they're adding the original Troll to Prime Video at the same time, but Troll 2 is curiously not a sequel to Troll. Apparently, they were worried that this movie about goblins in a town called Nilbog, which is goblin spelled backwards, was not going to do well, and they were definitely right. So they said, hey, why don't we just call it Troll 2, and people will think it's a sequel to Troll. And a cult classic terrible movie was born. In fact, this is one of the most famous bad movies ever made. It's absolutely hilarious. It's filled with great lines like this one.
And you can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it.
And this one.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me.
And of course, how could we forget?
Oh my God!
What's so great about Troll 2 is it is not going to leave you without a solid laugh for more than 30 seconds. I mean, scene to scene, there's something ridiculous. The directors actually didn't even speak English and had the actors who had never acted before improvise a lot of stuff on top of it just being a ridiculous concept to begin with. You end up with pure comedy gold that has held up for decades. All right, my next pick is not available on Prime Video. Well, technically it is, but it's part of the FreeVee package, which means it's totally free. Even if you don't sign up for Prime Video, you can watch Atomic Blonde this month. At the end of the video, I will show you the full list of everything that's going to be on FreeVee. But Atomic Blonde is a badass pick, and it's from director David Licht, who just did The Fall Guy. Easily one of my favorite movies this year so far. It's given me the itch to go back and revisit Atomic Blonde. While I did love, and I mean I absolutely loved some of the action in this movie, I did feel like it was way more style over substance. So we'll see what happens when I revisit it, but I gotta say, if you're gonna go for style over substance, at least they picked one hell of a style with Atomic Blonde. Next up, we got one I've recommended a few times before, but it is just a solid pick. I recently watched it with the family. Stardust. This is just a wonderful fantasy action adventure movie. It's got all sorts of amazing characters in it, stunning visuals, and a fun, lively story. This is from director Matthew Vaughn, who did X-Men First Class, Kick-Ass, and The Kingsman, and I honestly think Stardust has held up over time as one of his best. If you're a big fan of the classic movie The Princess Bride and you've somehow never seen Stardust, definitely check it out. Or if you've got kids that might be into something like that, this would be a great month to revisit this classic. It's also a great month to revisit The Crow. Later in August, they've got the new reboot of The Crow, starring Bill Skarsgård, which actually looks like it might be a legit reboot, so I'm going to be watching the original The Crow on Prime this month before the new one drops. But in a somewhat similar vein, a movie I recommend more strongly is Sam Raimi's Darkman. This actually stars Liam Neeson as a superhero, and it's pretty awesome. This movie is also directed by Sam Raimi, most famous for the Evil Dead movies, but he also did the original Spider-Man trilogy, and with Darkman, you get this dark horror style movie, but it's also a superhero movie based on a comic book series, so it's sort of a blend of the best of both worlds when it comes to Sam Raimi. Now, it is a bit old-fashioned, it does drag at times, but it's also got some just awesome action sequences in it that are all done with real stunts and real explosions, you know, because it's the 90s. And Liam Neeson plays this awesome dark character. This is just a great cult classic, like kind of a midnight movie. If you've never seen it and you're looking for something to watch late at night in August, this is definitely one of my top picks across all streaming platforms. As far as sci-fi goes, I gotta say I love Rian Johnson's Looper. I find this to be just an incredibly original time travel movie. The concepts are original. The vibe of this movie feels kind of original, but also kind of like a Twilight Zone spinoff or something like that, especially when the little boy is introduced. This movie's just got so many great concepts and characters, all actually glued together quite well, and it's just a top-notch sort of thrill ride of an action-adventure sci-fi flick. And then we've got maybe the least weird movie David Cronenberg has ever directed. It's titled Eastern Promises. In this movie, Viggo Mortensen plays a Russian gangster, and this movie takes a deep dive into this like Russian underbelly. Now, the movie actually takes place in London, but all revolves around this family of Russian gangsters. Viggo Mortensen is amazing in this movie. It's one of his best roles. But you've also got Naomi Watts and Vincent Cassel, making this a solid crime flick with a bunch of twists and turns, and it takes place in these beautiful Russian gangster-like settings. But my number one pick, and it was a close call between this one and Eastern Promises, but my number one pick is NARC, directed by Joe Carnahan. Not only did he direct this, but this is his first movie, and it is a banger. In this movie, Jason Patric plays a cop, and this is probably his greatest movie, second to Lost Boys. It's dark, it's dirty, it's grungy, you're dealing with dirty cops, but it doesn't feel cliched at all. The filmmaking and the storytelling are all top-notch, making it just kind of the best in class in terms of its genre. Don't forget to go check out DarrenVanDam.com after this video. You can sign up for my free newsletter. I send out movie recommendations to your inbox directly from me every single week. You can also check out the shirt designs. This is one of them. There's a bunch of movie-related shirt designs that my wife and I both created together. We've had a lot of fun doing it. Both are great ways to help support the show. But on August 8th, they're adding a new Prime Video original movie titled One Fast Move. This is about motorcycle racing, and it actually looks like it has a lot in common with the Gran Turismo movie. Basically, an underdog racer is coached by this sort of hardened coach. It's a very similar setup, looks like made for TV stuff, but should be a pretty cool watch for people who ride or, for people who've never seen a movie before. Same goes for Night Swim. This one actually got a bit of buzz this year, but I think some of that was manufactured by the marketing team, which if it was, kudos to them, they did a great job, because this movie this movie sucks. It's about a haunted pool. It does everything you would expect a horror movie to do and nothing you don't. My only real surprise is that Wyatt Russell was in this. He's typically in pretty good stuff. I'm surprised he went with this movie considering how basic everything about it is. But then on the 15th, they add another new John Cena action comedy. This one looks pretty funny though. It co-stars Awkwafina. I've thought she has been funny in everything I've seen her in. It's also directed by Paul Feig, who did Bridesmaids and a bunch of other funny movies. So there's some promise here. She actually plays a woman fresh to California trying to become an actress when she suddenly wins the lottery, which seems like a good thing. But in this movie, there's weird rules, almost like The Purge, where the lottery winner is hunted down for a day, and whoever has the ticket at the end of the day legally gets to keep the money. I know that's a mouthful to explain, and it's a ridiculous setup, but it should make for a really funny movie where people are trying to kill Awkwafina and John Cena the entire time. I'm not sure there's going to be much else to it. On the 22nd, they add Drive-Away Dolls. This is the new movie from one of the Coen brothers. Yep, Ethan Coen wrote and directed this on his own for, I think, the first time ever. It's a quirky road trip movie with a really incredible cast and some beyond mediocre reviews. But the same day is the first Thursday night football game. Don't forget, the NFL has Thursday night games included with Prime Video. Then on the 24th, they're adding 10 Cloverfield Lane. This might be my favorite movie of the series. I actually really like the original Cloverfield, don't get me wrong, but there's something about this one that I really enjoyed. I almost wish it didn't have the name. I wish you kind of found out that it was related to Cloverfield at the end of the movie, but you follow a group of people in a bunker. It's a pressure cooker type situation. It's just incredibly well written. John Goodman does an amazing job in this movie. I mean, the whole cast does, but he really does stand out. And I think him being cast in it particularly is what makes this movie work. If you've never seen it, the less you know, the better. But be prepared for this one to just gradually build all the way up to the climax. And then on the 29th, The Rings of Power returns for season 2. Now, this show has people divided. There's longtime Tolkien fans that really don't like at all what Prime Video did with this, and at the same time, it did kind of find its own audience, but it's an extremely expensive show for Amazon to put on. This is their attempt to create the next Game of Thrones, and so far it looks like they failed, but who knows? Shows like this often pick up steam in their second or third seasons. Now, here is everything getting added to FreeVee. Again, these are completely free. You can watch them on the FreeVee app or directly through Prime Video. But that is the list. Don't forget to check out DarrenVanDam.com, and I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special Prime Video episode, and you will see me on the next one.